morning. Today we'll be hearing inquests into the deaths of Rick De Morgan Jr., Paul Hudson and Ian Macbeth. I'll just take appearances first, please.
My pleasure, Honour. My name's Castleton. I appear with my learned friend, Mr Harker, assisting Your Honour in relation to those three inquests.
Thank you, Mr Castleton.
Your Honour, please. My name is Bree. I appear with my learned friends, Mr Newton and Miss Woodland, who will be here later in the week or next week for the state agencies, most relevantly the RFS.
Thank you, Mr Free.
Your Honour, Nick Dermott, First Initial C from the Victorian Bar, appearing on behalf of the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, otherwise known as the ATSB.
Thank you, Mr McDermott.
May it please the Court, Your Honour, Omani. I appear for both Coulson Aviation Proprietary Limited and Mr Sean Duggan, who was the pilot of B137.
Thank you, Mr Omani. I think that's everyone. I would also like to acknowledge the family members who are here today. Noreen, I can see that, Noreen, and Bodie. Yeah, thank you for being here. It's not going to be easy, I know, and I really appreciate your participation. I also would like to acknowledge Rick's family who can't be here and who may be listening now or listening at some other later time. Obviously, Rick and Paul and Ian can't be here for me to thank them, so I'd like to pass on my immense gratitude to you, the family, for their incredible bravery and generosity when they came to the aid of this country when we were going through a very black summer. So we owe them and you an enormous debt of gratitude and our heartfelt condolences for your loss. Thank you. Mr Castleton.
Thank you, Honour. On 23 January 2020, Rick De Morgan Jr., Paul Hudson and Ian Macbeth were providing aerial support to combat the Good fire in the Snowy Monaro region. Moments after dropping retardant in strong gusty winds, their Lockheed C-130 Hercules, call sign B134 or Bomber 134, was likely subjected to wind shear. Tragically, the aircraft stalled and crashed, resulting in the deaths of Rick, Paul and Ian. Over the coming 2 weeks, Your Honour will conduct the inquest into their deaths. For the benefit of the family and those who are not familiar with a coronial inquest, an inquest is a public inquiry into a reportable death. The primary function of an inquest is to identify the circumstances of death. At the conclusion of these inquests, Your Honour is required by Section 81 of the Coroners Act to record in writing the fact that a person has died and also record the person's identity, the date and place of death and the manner and cause of death. There are 5 questions to be answered: who died, where the person died, when they died, how they died and in what circumstances they died. A secondary purpose of an inquest is to consider whether it is necessary or desirable to make recommendations in relation to any matter connected with the death. The power is not limited to matters that are directly related to the manner and cause of death. Your Honour can consider more broadly whether any lessons can be learned from these deaths and whether anything should or could be done differently in the future, in particular to prevent a death in similar circumstances. Much of the focus of these hearings will be directed to considerations of potential recommendations. This morning I will refer to Mr De Morgan Jr. as Rick, Paul Hudson as Paul and Ian Macbeth as Ian. This order is in keeping alphabetically with their surnames. Coming, if I may, to Rick De Morgan Jr. Rick was 43 years old. Rick came from a tight-knit family and had a close relationship with his sister Virginia. He lived in Florida and had 2 children. At the time of his death, Rick was a member of the United States Air Force. He had served for 24 years. For most of that time, Rick was a flight engineer. He served multiple deployments in Afghanistan and Iraq and had amassed over 4,000 flight hours. Many of those hours were in combat. Rick joined Coulson Aviation in late 2019 whilst on leave from the military. He arrived in Australia in January of 2020. This was his first fire season. He was due to retire from the Air Force in early 2020. Rick was the flight engineer on B134 on 23 January 2020. We take this opportunity to acknowledge the tremendous loss to Rick's family, friends and community. We acknowledge Virginia De Morgan, sister of Rick De Morgan Jr., who could not be here in person, but has been in regular contact with the team assisting Your Honour and will be watching via the live stream link. We also acknowledge any other family members and friends who may be watching these proceedings. Turning, if I may, Your Honour, to Paul Hudson. Paul was the co-pilot of B134. He was 42 years of age. Paul lived in Arizona with his wife Noreen. Noreen describes Paul as always optimistic, positive and smiling. Paul was a career Marine. He went straight from high school into the US Naval Academy before joining the US Marines, where he spent the next 20 years in service. Paul retired in August 2019 as a Lieutenant Colonel. He had amassed almost 1,744 hours of flying time. Paul started work in Australia with Coulson Aviation in December of 2019. He was an eager learner. It was his first season as well, but Coulson's Director of Flight Operations describes Paul's early performance as at the level of someone with already half a season of aerial firefighting behind them. We take this opportunity to acknowledge the immense loss to Paul's family, friends and community. We acknowledge the presence of Paul's wife, Noreen, who has made the long journey from America to be in court today, and also to any other family members and friends who may be watching these proceedings. Coming now to Ian Macbeth. Ian was the pilot in charge on the 23rd of January 2020. He was 45 years old and had just handed in his resignation. This was Ian's last shift. Ian lived in Great Falls, Montana with his wife Bodie and their 3 children. He loved to ski, kayak and backpack. He was a pilot in the Wyoming and then Montana Air Guard. He was deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq and rose to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Over this time in the military, and after joining Coulson Aviation in 2014, Ian amassed 4,010 hours of flight time. This included 994 air tanker drops. He had also accrued almost 1,617 flight hours as a navigator. The foundation established in Ian's name describes him as an individual who loved adventure, appreciated hard work and respected the importance of duty. All led him into a life of service. It was a life of service which, like Rick and Ian's and Paul's, which was cut short too soon. We take this moment to acknowledge the tremendous loss to Ian's family, friends and community, some of whom have travelled to Australia to be here today. We acknowledge the presence of Ian's wife Bodie, who has made the long journey from America to be in court today, and any other family members and friends who may be watching these proceedings. Coming, if I may, Your Honour, to aerial firefighting in New South Wales. Rick, Paul and Ian all worked for Coulson Aviation. Coulson is a private operator contracted by the National Aerial Firefighting Centre, or the NAFC. Its contract with the NAFC requires Coulson to provide services, including aerial firefighting, when required to do so by certain states or territories, including, of course, New South Wales. Such an arrangement is not unique. During the 2019-2020 bushfire season, the RFS engaged 38 privately owned and operated aircraft through the NAFC. The RFS coordinates the use of these and other aircraft through its state air desk. Typically, where an incident management team decides that air support is required, it will submit an aircraft request form to the state air desk. That form is then sent to the Major Incident Controller, or MIC, or the State Operations Coordinator within State Command, who are ultimately responsible for allocating aircraft to a particular fire. After aircraft are assigned to a particular fire, the incident management team for that fire is usually responsible for their tasking. Tasking decisions are mainly made by the incident controller or deputy incident controller. The chain of communication for the tasking and operation of aircraft after the State Air Desk involves numerous individuals. Within the incident management team is the Air Operations Manager, who is responsible for coordinating and managing air resources in relation to a particular incident, and further implementing the air operations part of the Incident Action Plan, IAP. Also within the incident management team is an aircraft officer who reports to the Air Operations Manager and maintains communication with the Air Attack Supervisor and Air Base Manager. There is also an aviation radio operator within the IMT who communicates directly with the aircraft. Alongside these roles are the Air Attack Supervisor and Air Base Manager, as I referred to a moment ago. The Air Attack Supervisor is located on a supporting aircraft. They select and allocate specific assignment for aviation resources to an incident and brief pilots in flight on specific assignments, including any potential hazards. The airbase managers are responsible, Your Honour, for the operation of their assigned airbase, in this particular case Richmond, and the provision of information to pilots, including ensuring that they are briefed and debriefed. The B134 that Ian, Paul and Rick were flying was a large air tanker, or LAT. Unlike other aircraft, incident management teams are not usually involved in the determination of their tasking. Taskings are approved in relation to large air tankers or very large air tankers by the State Operations Coordinator. That approval is then communicated to a member of staff on the State Air Desk. That process, Your Honour, was initiated for B134 and B137 on the morning of 23 January 2020. The 23rd of January 2020, as Your Honour will recall, was a day of extreme fire danger. Dangerous northwesterly winds of up to 90 kilometres per hour were predicted in the southern and central ranges ahead of a cold front approaching from the southwest. At the time, multiple fires were burning throughout the state, including in the southern region. In the forecast conditions, the Adaminaby complex of fires in the Snowy Monaro region were predicted to pose a direct threat to lives and property in the town of Adaminaby. Your Honour will hear evidence that during the morning of 23 January 2020, a decision was made within State Command to task 2 large air tankers to the Adaminaby fire. As early as about 8:39 a.m, one aircraft was reporting to the Cooma Fire Control Centre that there were swirly 30 to 40 knot winds. A decision was made within the incident management team at Cooma to ground all aircraft. The incident management team, or IMT, expected to receive no aerial support that day. And I'll just play now the IMT briefing at 9 a.m. on the 23rd of January.
Basically, it's just buckled down today. We've got a lot of dust coming through here at the moment, probably winds. Looking at my wind tree here, I'd say it's probably somewhere between 30 and 40 kilometres an hour. Higher peaks we're expecting 120 kilometres an hour. So our aircraft are probably going to be down for the day. Blokes aren't going to be able to be working in any timbered areas because of the danger of falling trees.
I'll just end it there, Your Honour. By 10:30 a.m. on the 23rd of January, all aircraft assigned to the IMT operating out of the Cooma Fire Control Centre were on the ground. Within half an hour of this occurring, the State Air Desk issued 2 taskings. It retasked large air tanker B137, which was a Boeing 737, to the Adaminaby fire, and tasked Rick, Paul and Ian's plane, B134 to Adaminaby. At 11 a.m, the incident controller for the Snowy Monaro region, Superintendent Jim Darrant, made a call on the red phone to State Area Command. He requested that the alert level for the Adaminaby complex be raised to an emergency warning 5. And I'll just play that call that took place at about 11 a.m. on the 23rd of January on the red phone.
State Ops, Ben speaking.
G'day, Ben. Jim Darrant, Monaro.
No worries, that's Adaminaby.
Correct.
And your message will be?
Shelter in place.
No worries, mate. I'll just put you through the call. One sec.
Thank you for calling the New South Wales Rural Fire Service. Please hold and we will be with you shortly.
I reckon we'll just wait out the bushfire and see.
Is not a fireproof plan.
I think we've got a fire plan.
Is not a fireproof plan.
I mean, we'll probably stay, won't we?
Is not a fireproof plan. When will you leave? What will you take? Where will you go?
Okay, Commissioner Online. Deputy?
Yep.
Thank you. And media. Okay, I have Jim Durand online for the Adaminaby complex fire in the Snowy Monaro LGA. Jim, go ahead for me, please.
We currently have the Adaminaby complex fire is making a southeast run under severe fire weather conditions. At this point in time, rural properties are threatened, with the village of Adaminaby likely to come under threat this afternoon if containment is not successful. We have local resources backing up strike teams that have already been tasked to that fire. Aircraft are unable to fly at this point in time, and we do have a fire and rescue strike team en route as well.
Okay, so just confirming you're seeing increased fire activity with that fire with these strong winds. You currently got a number of rural properties coming under immediate threat with the potential for the township of Adaminaby later this afternoon. Aircraft are currently ground due to wind and visibility, and you've got fire rescue and other RFS resources either on scene or responding. Is that correct?
Correct, Ben.
Okay, so do you want to raise your fire to an emergency warning 5, is that correct?
Emergency warning 5, please, yes.
Understood. I believe we've got your polygons hard copy. We'll try and get those imposed into the COP. Just confirming your message will be?
Shelter in place.
Shelter now.
Correct.
Shelter as far as approaches?
Shelter as fire approaches.
Understood. And location and address base?
Correct.
Okay, understood. And just confirm the geographic location. We're describing it as the Adaminaby area?
That is correct.
Okay, understood. Okay, thank you. I understand the bird dog has been launched to check the ability of the LAT given that the smaller aircraft are affected, and we'll come back to you with the outcome of that.
Thanks very much, Ben.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, any questions? Deputy?
Yeah, can we ensure we get a line scanner up straight away and let's launch a LAT also? Let's not wait till the bird dog gets down there. Let's send 737 down there, something that can bomb by itself if need be, if the opportunity presents.
Understood. The line scan, unfortunately, is grounded due to the crosswinds and the wind. They're not able to fly in this weather, same as the other smaller firefighting aircraft.
Okay, let's just get LATs up there and see what they can do.
Understood, sir. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Thank you. Media?
No, all good.
All right, thank you. All right, Jim, we'll get that message prepared and give you a call when we're good to go. And just be aware that the Bureau are also currently revising the fire danger ratings for that area. It looks like that they may increase, so we'll come back to you shortly when that's confirmed.
Thanks, Ben.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone.
Your Honour, after that 11 a.m. call, the State Duty Aviation Officer on the State Air Desk was instructed to inform the Richmond Air Base manager to send the two LATs, B134, which is a C-130 Hercules, and B137, a Boeing 737, to Anabinabi without a bird dog. Your Honour, bird dog is a dual-engine aircraft that is designed to gather intelligence and lead large air tankers across the fireground to their target. The airbase manager was told that no air attack supervisor would be present due to extreme wind conditions. The B137, the Boeing 737, took off first for Anabinabi out of the Richmond Air Base. In a statement given to police, Sean, is it pronounced Duggan or Dugan? Mr. O'Money? Duggan. Sean Duggan, the captain of B137, said he was not told that other aircraft in the snowy Monero region were grounded. After B137 took off, one of the Richmond Air Base managers telephoned the State Air Desk about the tasking of a bird dog. I'll just play that telephone call now, Your Honour.
Sam speaking.
Oh, hey, thanks, Regan. Do you want the bird dog to head out to Anabinabi? Because they were called off the Coronial.
They call off Coronial?
Yes. So they were supposed to go. No, apologies. Sorry. Yeah, they were supposed to go to the Coronial fire. They were called off that. Do you want them to go anywhere else?
Which one are you talking about? 273 went to Clyde Mountain, is that right?
275 went. 273 were called off. So they're still here, and they were wondering if you had any other parts.
Yeah, so they're to go down to Anabinabi.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's what I told them, Michael, before, that I want the 737 and the Herc to go because they'll beat the bird dog, but yes, they can head to Anabinabi as well. I don't think they'll get through. I think it'll be too windy for them, but yes, get them to go to Anabinabi.
Okay.
Good on you, thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Anne.
Your Honour, the bird dog, that is bird dog 273 or BD 273, refused to take off for Anabinabi until a weather report was provided. This was relayed back to the State Air Desk. And Your Honour, I'll just play now a further call between Richmond Air Base and the State Air Desk relating to this matter.
Sam speaking.
Yeah, mate, I've just reverted 275.
Yep.
They're waiting for that longs from you guys.
Yeah, I'm just sending you through the email now, but I'll just open it up and read it to you.
Yeah, come on. Fire away.
Hang on. So FCTAP is 129.15.
129.15.
Yeah. Then they've got ACT Air Ops 9 was the agency channel.
Yep.
Guy to talk to is Steve Forbes.
Forbes, yep.
Local air attack will be in Firebird 100.
Yep.
And it's right next to Canberra Airport.
Canberra Airport.
Yeah, so they haven't got a lat long there, but obviously just go to Canberra Airport, call up on those channels, and they're requesting retardant. So just what's your next two on the ramp?
We got the DC-10.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, and the Argo.
Righto, okay. Yeah, well, I just hold at the moment, mate, because the 737, I believe, is... I'll fill the RJ up with retardant.
So fill up the RJ with retardant?
Yeah, and then just in case the 737 diverts, and then, but anyway, if we get 275 down there on the way, and then they can make a call, see what we need, mate.
Okay, not a problem.
Good on you, buddy.
275 on their way.
Yep, good on you, mate. And yeah, and then the other bird dog, so he'll go to Anabinabi, or he doesn't want to do that?
The pilot was just questioning weather down there, mate, that's all.
Well, the 737's over the head, so if he talks to them, and if he can get down there, well,
I think they're trying to talk to him. They're waiting for communication back from him.
Yeah, right. Okay, righto. Thanks, buddy.
We'll hold until we get communication. You happy with that?
Well, no, I'd really wanted to get them on their way, but turn them around. Yeah, that'd be better.
Right,
Thanks. See ya.
Okay.
Your Honour, could I seek a non-publication order over the mobile telephone number that was just aired?
Yes, I make that order now.
No, please, Your Honour. At 12:05 p.m, shortly after the State Air Desk was first informed of the bird dog's reluctance to fly, Rick, Paul and Ian took off in B134. B137 was over Adaminaby at the time. It received a text message from the pilot of the bird dog seeking a wind check. Sean Duggan responded, out of the west 37 knots. This reflected B137's experience above Adaminaby. It was flying in 37 knot winds during a low reconnaissance pass at 300 feet AGL and 50 knots at 1,000 feet AGL, that is above ground level, while orbiting the fire ground on the leeward side of hills near Adaminaby. B137 received a wind shear warning. At 12:26 p.m, the pilot of B137, Captain Duggan, radioed the Cooma Fire Control Centre to notify it that B137 was off the fire. The notes of the radio operator record states that B137, quote, will wait for bird dog, close quote. Captain Duggan says in a statement to police that he recommended the cancellation of all aircraft. He then informed the Richmond Air Base of its decision and began the flight back to Richmond Air Base. That decision was relayed to the State Air Desk in a call that I'll have played now, Your Honour.
Sam speaking.
Mike here, mate.
Yeah, mate.
137's on their way back here. They were able to drop their load at Adaminaby.
Yeah.
Okay, but the air is fairly dicey in regard to weather.
Right.
So I think from what I gathered from what they're saying, they probably won't go back at this stage.
Okay, no worries.
So
Well,
is it worth sending 138?
Um,
Whole 138 here.
you know, well, who's going to be filled the quickest, 138 or the RJ?
138.
Yeah, no, 138's already done a job, so just send the RJ down there.
Okay, mate. So send them down to Adaminaby.
No, send them to Canberra.
To Canberra.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah. And so,
just land to Canberra.
well, no, they should be then following into the back of 275, and he'll have a target for them.
Okay.
Good on you, mate.
No worry, I'll do that.
Yeah, so but hold 138 there then.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, and you haven't heard from 134?
134 I haven't heard from at this stage.
Right. Okay. Cool, mate.
134. Yep.
So 137's on its way back.
Yep.
As soon as the RJ is full of retardant, send it to Canberra, and then 134's still in the air, and then we'll see how we go.
Okay, mate.
Good on you, buddy. Thanks.
Thanks, mate.
At 12:35 p.m, just outside Canberra, B134 crossed paths with B137. Sean Duggan and Ian Macbeth discussed the tasking to Adaminaby over the radio. Ian told Sean that he had only been given the common traffic advisory frequency for the fire, radio channel TG45, and coordinates of the Adaminaby complex fire. Captain Duggan told Ian that Ian needed to call Cooma Air Operations on the radio for his contact person, that no other aircraft were flying in the area. Many firefighters were on the ground without ground contact. And finally, Captain Duggan told Ian about the deteriorating conditions at Adaminaby and that he had decided not to return to the fire. The last thing that Ian said to Sean was, "I'll go take a look." By 12:55 p.m, B134 had arrived in the Snowy Monaro region. At this time, Your Honour, the log for the aviation radio operator within the Cooma Fire Control Centre records a radio call with B134. It starts, drops at Adaminaby if looks good, if not proceed to good. The alternative tasking to the good fire appears to have been communicated to B134 before this. It seems on the authority of the Air Operations Manager within the Cooma Fire Control Centre, Peter Finstad. Mr Finstad's log records at 12:26 p.m, almost half an hour earlier, BD 275, that's Bird Dog 275, inbound with B134, new issue good, and then there are some latitude and longitude coordinates. Latitude 149, 21, 23, longitude 35, 59, 65. Within the incident management team at Cooma Fire Control Centre, neither the incident controller, Superintendent Durant, nor Deputy Incident Controller, Mr McGufford, were involved in retasking B134 to the Good Fire. The aviation radio operator states that in the contact at 12:55 p.m, B134 told him that they would proceed to Good if it was not safe to make a drop at Adaminaby. The State Air Desk and the State Operations Controller were unaware of the retasking, nor, it seems, the airbase managers at Richmond Air Base. At 12:58 p.m, B134 radioed the Cooma Fire Control Centre that they were going to Good, visibility at Adaminaby not good. Today, Your Honour will hear evidence from Laura Henwood, an investigation officer with the Australian Transport and Safety Bureau, or ATSB, about what occurred next. At 1:12 p.m, after reaching the drop site at Good, B134 radioed the Cooma Fire Control Centre and indicated that it would carry out multiple runs on the east side of the fire. The drop zone was on the eastern side of the ridge line as shown in this satellite image. B134 did 3 circuits of the drop zone, and I'll have that showed next, which comes from page 6 of the ATSB final report. And Your Honour will see that the first circuit was at 1,500 feet AGL, second circuit at 500 feet AGL, and then the third circuit at 1,000 feet AGL. And then Your Honour sees the blue marking, which corresponds with the drop circuit. On the drop circuit, Your Honour, B134 carried out a partial retardant drop and then began to climb. Your Honour will hear evidence today that during the ascent, B134 was subjected to wind shear and an increased tailwind component that degraded the aircraft's ascent. The indicated airspeed dropped and the aircraft most likely aerodynamically stalled. The stall resulted in B134 crashing to the ground and, tragically, the loss of Rick, Paul and Ian. 2 volunteers with the RFS, Stephen Boate, B-O-A-T-E, and James Barron, witnessed the crash. Stephen, James and another member of their crew, Brett Constance, rushed to the site of the crash to provide help. Your Honour, it should be acknowledged their selfishness in what could have been, their selflessness in what could have been undoubtedly harrowing circumstances for those individuals. Your Honour, the technical medical cause of Rick, Paul and Ian's deaths were unable to be determined by autopsy. The manner of their deaths is clear and uncontentious. The ATSB carried out a detailed investigation into the cause of the accident. Your Honour will hear about the findings of that investigation very shortly. Those assisting Your Honour understand that none of the parties appearing today take issue with the ATSB's findings of the technical cause of the crash. As a consequence, much of the evidence that Your Honour will hear during the inquests will be relevant to recommendations which Your Honour may choose to make. The evidence which relate to 6 primary issues: whether the tasking of aerial firefighting aircraft to the Adaminaby and then Goodwood Fire Grounds on 23 January 2020 was appropriate in light of the forecasted and known weather conditions, whether aircraft B134 was provided with sufficient and timely information on the 23rd of January 2020 to enable the crew to make an informed decision as to whether it should accept the tasking to the Adaminaby and Goodwood Fire Grounds, whether tasking agencies or private contractors should take a more active role in providing weather and other relevant flight information to pilots ahead of and during taskings, whether systems for communication between aircrafts and fire agencies are fit for purpose and used efficiently, whether the organisational culture and relationship between fire agencies and contracted aviation service providers unduly influences service demands, and finally, Your Honour, whether it is otherwise necessary or desirable for Your Honour to make recommendations pursuant to Section 82 of the Coroners Act in relation to any matter connected to these fire inquiries and these 3 inquests. Your Honour, several of these issues will be elaborated on today and were considered by the ATSB in the context of their investigation. The ATSB, Your Honour, identified as contributing factors the following: that the RFS continued the tasking of B134 to Adaminaby after it learned that no other aircraft would continue to operate due to the conditions. Instead, the RFS relied on the pilot in command to assess the appropriateness of the tasking without providing all available information to make an informed decision about flight safety. That the RFS did not have procedures for deployment of aircraft without aerial supervision and otherwise had limited large air tanker policies. That the RFS did not have a policy or procedure in place to manage task rejections, nor communicate that information internally or to other pilots. That Coulson's aviation safety risk management processes did not adequately manage the risks associated with large air tanker operations. There were no operational risk assessments conducted in the formal sense, as opposed to safety incident reports related to maintenance issues, and that Coulson Aviation did not provide a pre-flight risk assessment for their, again formally, for their large air tanker crews. Your Honour will hear evidence from members of the RFS and Coulson Aviation about what steps have been taken to address these concerns and the associated recommendations flowing from the ATSB investigation. Importantly, Your Honour, the RFS has, amongst others, taken out the following steps. They've developed an operational management procedure, aviation dispatch and task rejection policy released last year, which requires the State Air Desk to log a task rejection and for it to be communicated to aircraft assigned to the incident. They have established a specialist large air tanker and very large air tanker coordinator role with the primary function of coordinating taskings for LATs on days on heightened fire activity. The RFS have updated other internal policies, including to address aerial supervision requirements and circumstances in which a bird dog with or without an air attack supervisor is to be deployed. Similarly, and importantly, Coulson Aviation has developed and implemented a flight risk assessment tool to be used by its pilots prior to takeoff and have amended their flight manual and simulator training to address wind shear recovery. The adequacies of these steps and others will, no doubt, be examined over the following days. If it's convenient, Your Honour, I now tender the 8-volume brief of evidence, which I'm instructed will become Exhibit 66, and I also tender the brief. That's all I tender at this stage, Your Honour.
Yes, thank you. The Exhibit 66.
Your Honour, that concludes my opening remarks. Before I call the first witness, can I hand to Your Honour a proposed non-publication order? I understand a copy has been circulated to my learned friends. And as I understand it, there's no opposition to those orders being made.
Yes, thank you. I make those orders now.
May it please the court. Your Honour, if it's convenient, I propose now to call Ms Laura Henwood, investigator with the Australian Transport Safety Bureau. All right, I call Sam Crothers, C-R-O-T-H-E-R-S. Crothers could come forward, please.
Silence, please. Do you swear by Almighty God that the evidence you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Have a seat. Thank you, Mr. Crothers.
So would you please state your full name?
Sam James Crothers.
And have you provided a statement dated the 22nd of February 2023 in relation to the 3 inquests presently before Her Honour?
That's correct.
And do you have a copy of your statement with you, Mr. Crothers? And have you read that statement recently?
I have.
Are there any matters that require any correction?
No.
You were you not, on the 23rd of January 2020, the State Duty Aviation Officer on the State Air Desk?
Correct.
And were you positioned within the State Operations Command at Olympic Park?
Correct.
And can I ask you, by that time, had you performed the role of State Duty Aviation Officer previously?
I had.
And for how many months or years had you undertaken that role as part of your service for the New South Wales Rural Fire Service?
Approximately 15 years.
And did you undertake a number of courses that enabled you to conduct that role as the State Duty Aviation Officer?
No.
What training qualifications, to your understanding, was required for you to perform that role?
Well, I was an air operations manager, air attack supervisor, airbase manager, aircraft officer, aviation radio operator, and airbase operator, and worked for the State Air Desk, as I said, for that approximately 15 years. But the answer to your question, for formal State Air Desk training, it was on the job sort of experience from that 15 years.
Thank you. And generally speaking, could you just outline for Her Honour's benefit what the primary roles or responsibility are for a duty aviation officer?
We're prominently for requesting and dispatching aircraft to emergency incidents, for fire and flood emergencies, and then for the logistical support of those aircraft being fuel, and also the personnel to support those aircraft operations at the satellite air bases.
I just want to now deal with the tasking of LATs or very large air tankers. Was it the position as at January of 2020 that the tasking of those aircraft could only be done by the State Operations Controller or the Major Incident Coordinator?
That is correct.
Did the State Air Desk, to your understanding at that time, play any role in relation to whether or not a large air tanker would be tasked to a particular incident?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Did the State Air Desk play any role in relation to whether or not particular LATs should be tasked to a particular fire incident?
We provided information on what aircraft, because there was 5 LATs operating out of Richmond, and so we provided the information to the State Operations Controller on what the LATs were doing at the time, what fires they were going to, and so we'd provide that information to the State Operations Controller.
And as in your role as the State Duty Aviation Officer on the State Air Desk, did you yourself, in performing that role, have any direct communication with a pilot in command of a LAT or not?
No, always went through the airbase manager.
is it correct then that all your communications in relation to the tasking or retasking of a LAT was communicating with the relevant airbase manager where those LATs were located?
Correct, yep.
And were all of the LATs located at the Richmond airbase?
No, there was one in Canberra, I believe. I'd have to go back through my records, but traditionally we had one in Canberra and then also one at Dubbo.
And taking your mind back to the 23rd of January, Mr. Crothers, of 2020, do you recall having communications with the airbase manager at Richmond, of which there were two, Cherie Smith and Michael Davison?
I recall, yes.
And were they known to you before the 23rd of January 2020?
Not personally.
Had you, in your previous experience working on the State Air Desk, had you had occasion to communicate with them prior to the 23rd of January 2020?
I believe not.
Now, I just want to take you into your statement, if I may. If you could turn it up, please. I just would firstly like you to explain to Her Honour how the ARENA system works, which is a system that records the tasking of particular aircraft. How does it work internally within the RFS?
I apologise, Your Honour, I don't know what the acronym ARENA stands for, but it's a system that has the information that the aircraft companies and the pilots put in the information about the aircraft. Then we input the fire and the information that comes through from an aircraft request form saying where the what is required for what particular type of aircraft, being either fixed wing or rotary. And then the system provides the information to the State Air Desk operator on what would be the most appropriate resource to attend that fire emergency.
And in relation to the tasking of Bomber 134 and Bomber 137, is it your understanding that there was no formal request because they were requested from the SOC, the State Operations Coordinator, on that day?
They'd been, again, from memory, we started at about flying operations about 10 a.m. in the morning. And so there were lots of aircraft were going to different fires. So those, the answer to your question for that one, though, there was no formal aircraft request.
And by that, there is within the standard operating procedure within the New South Wales Rural Fire Service an aircraft request form, but in circumstances where there's expediency, such as on this occasion, it seems there was no need for that formal request to be made because it was a decision made at about 11 o'clock by the SOC.
That's correct.
Now, are you... I withdraw that. Now, if we just go into your first annexure to your... the second... the first of page 682... 31, which it's your operational log, Mr. Crothers. I'm not sure if you've got the same numbering that I have. Do you see there your handwriting on an operational log?
I do.
I'm just wondering if you could decipher, for Honour's benefit, some of the notations that you've made. There's reference under the name or call sign column towards the front, BD 275. Is that a reference to Bird Dog 275?
That's correct.
And then at about 11:10, immediately under 275, if you could just read the notation under that, please, right down to vicinity of Adaminaby Village, please.
So 11:10, 275 lifted for the Hunter, and then the coordinates were given to the Hunter Valley for that. The next one, it was a retask, so to go with the Bird Dog as faster into
Just pausing there. Is it go without bird dog?
Well, this one is go without the bird dog. That's correct.
So read task, go without bird dog.
It's faster to respond.
Yes.
And Peter asked for fire spotting.
And pausing there, Peter, is that Peter McKechnie?
That's correct.
It was at that stage the Deputy Commissioner holding the role of State Operations Coordinator?
No, he wasn't the State Operations Coordinator as far as I was aware. He was there as the Deputy Commissioner, or Assistant Commissioner, I believe.
I cut you off. Peter asked for, and please continue.
For fire spotting to attend, and then 2 lats to go to Adamidemy, and to gather intel, and conditions are bad. There's no initial attack, and to go to the vicinity of the Adamidemy village.
What was the word after no?
No initial attack. So, well, that's bird dog. So it's the same, Your Honour, the same sort of thing for no bird dog or initial attack.
Doing the best you can today, what was the message that was being conveyed in relation to that, or the receipt of that information by you?
To get 2 lats to go to Adamidemy ASAP.
And in terms of no initial attack, what was your impression or your understanding of what was being conveyed to you in relation to that topic?
Well, through that one was, as I said, was obviously emergency, faster to respond. I'm not sure of the bird dog. I know we had one in the air up at Hunter Valley fires. The second one was on the ground. I believe it was might have attended that morning to the Hunter Valley or around the Southern Highlands, and so again it was just to send 2 lats to Adamidemy straight away.
And when you've recorded conditions are bad, no initial attack, are you referring to flying conditions, referring to on the ground fire conditions? What is
I believe I would have been referring then to sort of fire conditions, because I've heard the red phone go off, and usually when we hear that the red phone goes off, it's the conditions are bad.
Now, I don't want to have inadvertently misled you, but the reference to BD2, I said 275. Is it BD 275 or 273?
Yeah, I mean, again, you could see that there was, because there's 2 bird dogs that we use, and you could actually read that as 273 or a 5, but for my reading of that one, with my writing, I would have said 275 over the top of the 273.
Now, and that, do I understand that information came at 11:10, or did that come at both 11:10 and then subsequently at 1200?
I couldn't answer that one, but I mean, it's sort of, I'd saying that the 2 lats to go to Adamidemy would have been at 12 o'clock, and the 11:10 would have been for the bird dog, the 275 lifting, as it said there, to go to Big Jack Mountain.
The reason I asked that, if I could just take you, please, Mr. Crothers, to paragraph 27, it seems that the 2 lats to go to Adamidemy for initial attack, you have in your statement as information received by you at 11:10. If you take a moment to look at paragraph 27 of your statement, page 5.
That is correct. From what my statement was saying there, at 11:10, was informed to take the 2 lats to go to Adaminaby.
You say in paragraph 28, and if you need a moment to read it quietly yourself, please say so, that you, in that communication, you say, I then reiterated, this is a communication with the airbase manager at Richmond, I then reiterated that the aircraft should only do what they could do safely. Now, do you have a clear recollection of that, or is that based off a document that you've refreshed your memory with more recently?
I don't have a clear recollection of that. I did go back through my log.
It's not in your log, but it does, and I'm happy to take you to the relevant passage. Does the witness have volume 3? If not, could the witness be provided with volume 3? And if the witness could turn up, please, tab 44 and page 781. Thanks, Court Officer.
Thank you.
Do you see there an operational log under the names Michael and Sheree? I'd ask you to assume that's Michael Davison and Sheree Smith, who were the airbase managers at Richmond. And if you see the notation, there's one at 10:49 where there's a reference to Sam, SAD. Is that your understanding that's a reference to you, Mr. Crothers?
That would be me, Sam at the SAD.
And then recorded there's retasked B137 to Adaminaby ASAP, no bird dog, windy conditions, only to do what they can do safely. And then further on, launch B134 to Adaminaby ASAP, no bird dog, windy conditions, only do what they can do safely. And is that something that you would have said to the airbase managers, that they only do what they can do safely? That is a reference to B134 and 137?
That is correct.
And why would you have conveyed that message in a communication to the airbase managers at Richmond on that day?
Well, whenever we do dispatch aircraft, we sort of there is sort of usually a hazards column. So if we knew, if there was wires in the area or conditions, we always sort of just to reiterate to just do what they can do safely.
And what information did you have to hand that led you to ensure that the pilots of B137 and B134 only do what they can do safely because of windy conditions? What did you know about the windy conditions at that time?
Well, I would have only just have seen it through the weather reports that we've got from before. I was, and yeah, it was a very. I mean, that's what drives the fires. It was windy conditions.
Did you hear the red call that took place at 11 o'clock?
I heard the phone go off, but I wasn't part of the conversation or within the inner ring of that phone message. I was at the air desk and probably on taking phone messages.
Did you speak to anyone who was on that 11 a.m. or 11:03 a.m. red phone call?
Not that I can recall.
If I then take you back into your statement, please, Mr. Crothers, at paragraph 29, your account there that at 11:30 hours you had a further conversation with the Richmond Air Base and requested that LATs be launched to Adaminaby, but that no local air attack supervisor would be present due to extreme wind conditions. Now, going back into your log, if I may, your operational log, page 68231, is that information recorded in your log?
What number, please?
My page references 682-31.
Yes.
It's sheet number 10, sheet 035, or there's a number 10 in the top right-hand corner, if that assists.
I've got that.
What I'm interested in is the note, the reference in your statement of paragraph 29 to no local air attack supervisor would be present due to extreme wind conditions. Do we see that recorded in your log on page 682-31 or not?
All I've got is until we got a weather report from the aircraft that was down there.
Could it be that you've relied on that information again from the operational log of Michael Davison and Cherie Smith, the airbase managers, who have recorded at 11:30 hours, conversation purportedly with Sam from the State Air Desk, launch BD, Bird Dog 273 to Adaminaby, no AAS, no air attack supervisor due to extreme wind conditions?
That is correct. I could have received that information from them, yes.
Well, I want to suggest that if their note's accurate, you've passed that information on to them, have you not? Or would it have been the other way around?
Could have been either way.
You don't have a recollection today as to where that information may have come to you? No. And what, if any, significance would attach to the fact that there's no local air attack supervisor would be present for that tasking of B134137 on that day?
Because of the RFS policy of initial attack for the LATs, it wasn't something that was out of the norm. That usually the LATs, as I said, for initial response or initial attack, do go to those fires without air attacks there.
Do you recall now whether the reason that there was no local air attack supervisor was because all the planes, that is the aircraft attached to the Cooma Fire Control Centre, had been grounded?
I believe afterwards I heard that they were grounded, but at the time for actual dispatching the aircraft, I wasn't aware of that information because it.
And going back in time and doing the best one can, having regard to your practices, as at the 23rd of January 2020, would it have been your expectation that that information would have been conveyed to the pilots in command of B134 and 137, that is, that there was no local air attack supervisor present due to extreme wind conditions? Usually
that would have been part of the information that the airbase manager would pass on in part of his safety brief.
And that, do I take it that's information that would have been passed on to the pilots in command from the airbase managers at Richmond?
That's correct.
As the duty aviation officer at the State Air Desk, would you have been informed through the ARENA system that the local aircraft at Cooma had been grounded?
No.
How would that information ordinarily be conveyed to the State Air Desk?
Ordinarily, it would have come through from the air operations manager or the aircraft officer on the at the local airbase. And would that be via telephone or radio, or would it be done more formalised? It would always be through by telephone. By telephone. And once that information, in the ordinary sense, is received, how would it be recorded or documented within State Operations Command via the State Air Desk? Well, it should be logged, and then also the person then actually taking that message would then pass that message on to the State Operations Controller. And when you say logged, logged in Icon or some other system? Logbook. Yes. Was there a central database that would enable other people who were able to access the system to see that that had occurred, that is local air? If the call came through from the air operations manager or the aircraft officer from the local base, wouldn't necessarily be logged. But answer to your question, in ICON, which is a local reporting, that the incident controller would have made that visible to everybody, and it should be on that in that ICON too, that aircraft would be grounded. But on the air desk, I don't read that.
You don't read that.
And can I just also say that there was, depending on the time there was 4 or 5 other people on the air desk, and they were all taking calls. I was taking calls probably every 3 to 4 minutes. So when I say that an airbase manager or an air operations manager might have rung the air desk, they didn't talk to me personally. They could have talked to some of the other operators on the air desk that day.
Paragraph 30 of your statement, Mr. Crothers, you record another telephone call with Cherie from the Richmond Air Base. There you state that you informed Cherie that Bird Dog 273 was to be launched to Adaminaby along with B134 and B137, although it could be too windy for Bird Dog 273. And again, do you have an independent recollection today of that telephone call, or are you basing your evidence off the logbooks?
I can't. Every individual call, I cannot recollect that, and I would have, I just can't recall that one.
Have you, in preparation of your statement today, seen the transcripts of the telephone calls that you may have had? Some of them are next to your statement.
Yes.
Did you refresh your memory when you came to do your statement by reference to those telephone transcripts?
I definitely would have refreshed my memory, yes.
If you go to page 682-38, which is the relevant telephone call between yourself and Cherie Smith at 11:37, and it's page 34 of your statement, Mr. Crothers, you'll see towards the end, and this is in reference to tasking a bird dog, you'll see there that this is you, that I want the 737, that's the Boeing 737B137, is that your understanding?
There's 2 737s, but that's correct.
And the Herc, I take it that's reference to B134?
That's correct.
To go because they'll beat the bird dog, but yes, they can head to Adaminaby as well. When you are referring to yes, they can head to Adaminaby as well, are you referring to the bird dog? And if you need to read the whole passage to give context, you'll see at the start, Ms. Smith says to you, do you want the bird dog to head out to Adaminaby because they were caught off Coronial?
So that's correct. That was by reading this. We're talking about there was one bird dog on the ground, and there was another bird dog in the air from the Hunter Valley. Yeah. And as I've stated, I redirected the bird dog from, I can't remember which one from my memory here. I diverted the aircraft, the bird dog that was from the Hunter Valley, to start heading down south because there was other fires cracking off.
Yes.
And one of those fires was actually right next to Canberra. And so I knew that the lats were heading down that way, and I wanted to get a bird dog into that southern part of the state because obviously we had nothing there for as the things grew.
And tell me if you disagree with this, but at about halfway into the transcript, you'll see Miss says 275 went, 273 were called off, so they're still here, and they were wondering if you had any other task for them.
So what that was referring to, the 277, if the figures are right for what they're saying for that bird dog, 275 went, which I would have believed, to the Hunter Valley.
Yes.
And then was rediverted later on. Where it's saying here 273 were again to go to the Clyde Mountain from memory. That could have been around Mudgee or the southern tablelands. I can't recall exactly. It's that
Somewhere south.
so many, yeah. Oh, well, somewhere around that sort of
Canberra.
the Sydney region, and so that's why they're saying that that 273 are waiting for another tasking.
Thank you. Now, returning to the last full paragraph, which is attributed to you, Mr. Crothers, where bird dog, but yes, they can head to anonymity as well. I think you've agreed that that's likely to mean the bird dog. Just coming to the next and final passage, I don't think they'll get through. I think it'll be too windy for them, but yes, get them to go to anonymity. Are you referring to them or they'll as the bird dog, or all three aircraft being B-13?
I'd be referring to the bird dog.
Yes.
And again, from going back to what I just said, is that if they couldn't get through to Adamidity, I knew that there was another fire starting in the Canberra area, and as I said, the fires were starting to really crack off in that part of the state, and I was trying to get another resource down there, but I'm definitely referring to the bird dog there, not the LATs.
And is it a fair inference to draw that at that time, based on your experience, you had an appreciation that the conditions may be such that it's too windy, that the bird dog may not get to anonymity?
That's correct.
Did you at that time have any concerns about the conditions, the windy conditions, so far as they related to B-137, the Boeing 737, or B-134, the C-130 Hercules?
No.
All right. You know, I note the time. Unfortunately, I don't believe I'll finish with Mr. Crothers today. Unfortunately, Mr. Crothers, we'll need to see you tomorrow morning.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Crothers. We'll adjourn now and resume at 10.